Alright, so, well, we're here. We're gonna make the tier list. Woo! Yippee! We're going to be ranking every character by these tiers, right? We're gonna have the child tier, which there he is. So, of course, child just cannot do plunge attacks, so he's probably gonna be the only character that is not going to receive any buffs from Xianyun, so he goes into the child tier. So then the next tier is going to be doesn't work, physical damage only, not worth it overall, right? It's pretty self-explanatory. These characters that just don't get enough of a damage increase from Xianyun and from using plunge attacks in general. Physical damage can work with Xianyun, however, it's just that you are much better off using characters with infusions that can do reactions or that have kits that really let you do much more damage, like Diluc, for example, is once again a character that you've heard a lot about, and unless you have like C6 Mika, the physical teams just do not do enough damage to really perform that well. However, it is going to be their best damage potential, right? If you do want to do like a clickbait max damage potential screenshot, you can do it, and in some cases, for some characters, it is going to be their best damage. However, it is just often not going to be that much better than just running any of the units that are going to be in the higher tiers, right? The next tier is going to be characters that do work, however, that are not going to deal enough damage to out DPS their normal teams, because Xianyun, you have to remember it, does take up a slot on the team that you can use for someone like Azua or any other support character to make your character deal more damage throughout their usual kit, and this really shows where if their plunge attacks don't deal enough damage, it is just better off running their normal kit over this. For example, one of them is Yanfei, right? Her plunge attacks are just not as good as her usual kit because she's one that doesn't really gain any buff from Xianyun. The next tier is works, and it has decent damage increase over the usual kit. I believe this category also explains itself pretty well. It is just characters that are going to work very well with Xianyun, and that I believe characters that you should be able to play with Xianyun and, well, should play with Xianyun. The next tier is game changing, right? These are characters that are going to completely change the meta because their damage increase that they get is going to be so ridiculous. It is actually going to change their positions in the meta, right? Once again, talking about Diluc. And then the last tier is going to be just game breaking, right? However, needs C6. Place your bets down below on who do you think actually goes in this tier, right? And I believe you probably know who goes there. So let's actually start off. No. The thing is, there's just characters that don't really gain any benefit from running Xianyun over just their usual teams. Like, for instance, Danger MC is just way better, and Jean, just with a healing build, is just going to be better than running it in this particular team, right? Lisa works, but her damage is less and literally just doing charge attack spam. Lisa's motion value on her plunge attack is less than her charge attack. It is just way worse losing the extra slot for placing in Xianyun for gaining such a small increase. Amber falls into the physical category. I think it's just self-explanatory. Her kit just offers her more damage, so yeah. Plus she doesn't really work with Xianyun. Noelle is actually going to be one of the characters that is going to get a really nice overhaul. Her plunge attacks do deal a lot more damage, and the biggest issue with Noelle was her damage output, so now she's going to be able to deal a lot more damage than usual, so she works very well with Xianyun, and she goes into the works with decent damage increase tier. Barbara, yeah, it's just that's really questionable. She deals more damage with literally her charge attacks. So again, it isn't to say that she doesn't work, as she is a catalyst user, as she does have infusion, so she does work with Xianyun, so I'm gonna put her in this tier. Just consider that her normal kit just does more damage than playing her with Xianyun. Sucrose is the same case. Actually, it's even worse than Barbara because she isn't Hydro, so she can't vape official. Once again, it's the same thing as Amber, just play her in a normal team. You can slot her in as a support in the Xianyun team, however, that's not really what we're looking at here. We're looking at characters that get a buff from Xianyun, not that would go well with teams that use Xianyun. Mona goes into here as well. The little additive bonus is that she can boost her own damage as well. Once again, her charge attacks just deal way more damage as she is a catalyst. Kaya, physical, I don't think I need to explain. Diluc Diluc, game changing, right? This is gonna be the first character that I put in this tier, and you've probably heard a lot about Diluc receiving a major buff, and it is absolutely true. Diluc mains rejoice. You've only waited 3 years and he's finally actually going to be meta. Razor, pretty nice. He's gonna go above G because he's a Claymore user, so he has better motion value. However, he does physical damage. His kit is really revolved more around using his burst, and it doesn't really do much in Xianyun teams. The only thing that you can profit off is that he's Electro and he's a Claymore, so he can do Superconduct. Bennett. As much as I want to say that he goes into physical, yeah, you probably guessed it. He's going to be very, very strong, right? He does give you infusions, so off the bat, just because he can give you a Pyro infusion, which is what is going to separate him from Xianyun and Candace, is, well, he's Bennett, right? First of all, he infuses your characters with Pyro instead of Cryo or Hydro, which is easier to vape. Arena is a lot easier to play in these teams than using a Bennett Shangling core or a Bennett Kazuha core, so overall it's just better. Plus he does give off quite a lot more damage stats, right, than the other units. Plus he does give you 15% pyro damage bonus as well, which is even more damage compared to the other options. So overall Bennett is just really, really, really good with Xianyun and in this update. But yeah, the only thing that is really preventing me from saying that, oh my god, just C6 your Bennett, is the fact that you can't un-C6 your Bennett. Please just let us turn off constellations. The only reason why I'm not C6ing my Bennett, and this is actually the first real time that I contemplated doing it, is because I play so many physical teams. When we're gonna get top level constellations, this is absolutely going to be really good unit to C6. Ning, less damage. Once again, her kit just does a lot more damage overall, especially using her Starjades, so she isn't good. Beidou, physical damage, right, doesn't really work, plus her burst really doesn't proc. Her Beidou, right? Yeah, see, her burst doesn't hit on plunge attacks, it's only normal charged, so unfortunately you can't use her in these teams, so she just becomes another Razor. Kasing, game changing, just because she gains so much more damage from the plunge attacks that she's gonna deal. Kaching is another character that suffers a lot from bad motion value, and the plunge attack damage that she can gain from it is going to be pretty good over her normal charge attack spam. Plus it is quite a lot easier since her charge attack is quite clunky. It is actually gonna fall a little bit short on damage. However, I still do consider that Kaching does profit a lot from Xianyun, so we will put her in game changing because this will change the meta for Kaching. Shangling, physical damage. She does give fire damage, but you won't be able to vaporize your hits, so Shangling is only good if you want to reverse vape or reverse melt, so that could be a consideration, but once again, we're talking about on-field carries and not characters that can be supports in Xianyun teams. Xianyun, he can actually be pretty good, right, as he can infuse himself, and ironically, it does increase the damage that Xianyun deals. Plus, once again, if you use like a core with Bennett Shangling or Bennett Kazuha, you can still actually do reverse melts on Xianyun, so he actually does get quite a decent damage increase from Xianyun. Xinqiu, he is physical, doesn't work. Chi-Chi is physical, doesn't work. What do I do with Venti? Like, what do I even say about Venti? I mean, Xianyun, and we're just gonna put Venti in there, right? Because he literally is just another Xianyun, but he's just a little more clunky to use. Klee, she works. However, her mono pyro teams are just a lot better since she's not going to be able to vaporize a lot of her damage, and since her charge attacks overall are going to deal more damage, it is just not worth to do plunge attack spam. Diona is Diona, right? Physical damage. Zhongli is Zhongli, physical damage. Actually game changing for Xinyan. I actually want to leave her there, as unironically it is her best team overall. It is better to build Xinyan in physical damage with Xianyun. Well, I guess Albedo is just another elevator, so he doesn't really work, plus he's physical. The magic Coco Goat does not gain more damage. She's physical damage on her plunge attacks, plus her normal kit just does way more damage. Xiao, actually one of the first characters in the works well tier that is going to be really, really good. Xiao is going to receive quite a big damage increase overall, right? We've been waiting for quite a long time to get a Xiao character that is going to buff his damage, right? We received Farazan. Farazan was a good increase in damage. So now Xianyun is going to increase his damage even further. So that is very nice. Hu Tao, game changing. A bit like Diluc, she has an infusion and her plunge attacks deal power damage. Plus she has really good modifiers. In some cases where you do charge attack spam with plunges in between, it actually is going to out DPS her normal team. It's not something that caught me off guard, as I was expecting Hu Tao to be pretty good with these teams. Rosaria, she's decent, as she can boost physical damage for herself, plus she doesn't have that bad plunge attack damage multipliers, so she could be pretty decent in these teams. So if you want to play her like that, you could. Once again, her cryo damage build is probably gonna do more damage overall. And here we get to the prime example of works but deals a lot less damage, and is going to be Yanfei, right? First of all, her charge attacks deal more damage, plus her overall kit lets her dish out way more damage than if you would be spamming plunge attacks. Plus, once again, you're losing a slot for Xianyun, which you could be using for someone like Sucrose. They could increase your damage so much further. Eula, I guess I'm gonna put Eula in works but less damage. She is probably gonna be the character that will deal the most amount of damage from plunge attacks on physical, since her elemental skill does reduce physical resistances, so she can be pretty good. Actually, I'm gonna move her up, right? She can get a little bit better damage, I believe, from utilizing Cloud Retainer, but we're gonna have to see. I don't know if you're actually going to be able to weave in the elemental burst in between the rotations, but if you could, that would absolutely be a massive damage increase. But until then, we're just gonna have to stay strong. Kazuha, right? I believe he goes into the C6 category, right? Because Kazuha at C0 does not really benefit that much from Xianyun. I wouldn't suggest you to use him, right? I would put C0 Kazuha in, doesn't work on physical damage only. However, it is worth to mention that at C6, his plunge attack damage also gets converted to an emo damage, so that is going to be really good. And I do believe that people who will have C6 Kazuha are going to be able to deal so much more damage than usual Kazuha does in just a normal Kazuha animal damage team. Ayaka actually is going to be a really strong candidate for a meta overhaul. Vape Plunge Ayaka is actually quite good. I have tried her a bunch, and I have to say that it's actually going to be one of the teams that I am personally going to be playing, surprisingly, right? I wasn't expecting Ayaka to actually gain that much more damage than her usual kit. You could argue that just the permafreeze team is going to run better on Ayaka, and it is absolutely true. Yoimiya, physical damage doesn't really work. Xianyun doesn't work. Ooh, Raiden. Now, yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. Similarly to Keqing, is going to be a very similar playstyle. Raiden is just gonna get a bit more damage rather than using her good old usual charge attack spam. She can gain a little bit of damage from it. However, it is worth to say that just charge attack spamming with an animal unit like Kazuha is going to deal more damage. I do believe that this is going to be a nice change of pace for Raiden. Zara doesn't work. Kokomi, again, I believe this tier can literally just be renamed Catalysts. Once again, her charge attack deals more damage. Alloy, Toma doesn't work. Now, Ito. Ito is actually going to be one of the characters that I'm going to be the most looking forward towards. He's going to be quite insane, as his plunge attack damage actually out DPSs his normal charge attack spam by quite a lot. And one thing that I really have to say about Ito is that his best team is C0 R5 White Blind is actually his best team for this, as Red Horn doesn't offer you that much. Why am I saying that at C0 he is actually at his peak potential? Well, it's because his constellations, all apart the 5th, increase charge attack damage and everything related to charge attacks and not plunge attack damage. So he can use his kit that grants him a lot of attack very well with his plunge attacks to deal quite a lot of damage. Gore's physical. Shinho is interesting. She is good. She is really good. And I would say that with Ayaka, she plays really well. I do believe that Shinho is actually going to be really strong with especially characters like Xianyun for infusions to make them deal a lot of damage. Plus the fact that if characters are going to do plunge attack damage, they're not going to be consuming as much of the coil stacks. So it's just better to run this team in order to preserve as many coil stacks instead of spending them all on normal attacks like with Zhongli. Yunjin, she's physical. She does gain more damage on her normal kit. Yamiko, she works actually surprisingly well, and she's going to be the character that's going to be closest to actually coming pretty even with her normal kit. However, once again, I have to say it again, just don't use Xianyun, put on Kazuha, put on Sucrose, right? Put on another carry that is going to take on field like a Hytham or something. Ayato is Ayato, he can do plunge attacks, so physical damage. Yelan can only do physical damage, however, she can buff her own physical damage, which is quite nice, so she can do more damage potentially than the other units. Cookie is meh, right? Hazel, once again, building Hazel for his elemental skill and his elemental burst damage is just going to be way better. Plus, once again, his charge attack spam is wide good. Big T, well, physical. Kole and Dori is also as well. However, she's game breaking at C6 as she gains an infusion with electro damage. But no, she does not even deserve this tier, right? She does gain an infusion, however, it is only a 3-second infusion. It is better damage. It is by far better damage because she's a Claymore user, plus she gets an electro infusion, but she can still work around with her elemental skill and elemental burst. I would say that she works pretty well with Xianyun. Sino, damage increase. The thing with Sino is that once again, just swapping in on another unit that can buff him even more is going to be way better. The real thing is that he doesn't gain that much more damage because he doesn't gain that much more from plunge attacks. Plus his plunge attacks, they have quite a long animation, so that's another disadvantage. Candace is going to be a really strong unit. I do think that you remember that Candace was once deemed the Hydro Hutao, so she's actually gonna take a comeback. We're probably gonna see her get played quite a bit more. I myself am going to actually build her only for this team, so it just shows you how Candace is actually gonna be good. The disadvantage is that she does not buff plunge attack damage with her passives, right? It is only normal attack damage. Nilu is actually quite interesting. It is worth to say that she doesn't plunge attack. Unfortunately, it is only her normal attacks that get converted into the special one. She doesn't plunge attack with infusions, so she doesn't work either. Nahida is an interesting one because she can deal a little bit more damage. Once again, just the charge attack spam is just way superior. Layla, she's physical. Wanderer is gonna be our #1 contestant for works, but his kid just does way more damage. Farzan doesn't really work with this team either. She is a good buffer, just like Shinhe. We're gonna actually put her up top. Goro can actually go here as well, I believe. Sarah can go up there because they are buffers. They do deserve to be at the top. Maybe even Fischl as well. Other than that, item. This is the character that is going to be the strongest character after the 4.4 update. It is ridiculous, and I cannot stress enough how strong Alhaitham is going to become. He is going to be insane because the real thing is he can use his plunge attacks with his entire kit, and all of his constellations, all of his passives increases damage even further. He's the only character that I believe has 100% synergy with Xianyun, and that is absolutely required, in my opinion, to be played with her. Now, of course, you can actually skip her. It's not really that important. However, his plunge attacks are really good. He has Dendro Infusion as well, and his mirror procs work on plunge attacks. And the amount of damage that you get out of it over his usual normal attack and charge attack spam, he gains so much more damage. And the fact that Alhaitham was still a pretty decent DPS now makes him even stronger. Hutao, for example, was a really strong DPS, so this update doesn't really gain her that much. Although Alhaitham, on the other hand, gains a major damage increase in this. Plus, Xianyun will be able to boost his damage even further on his plunge attacks, so it's really not even that bad for losing a character slot in this team. Yao Yao, physical. Yeah, I shit you not, Dea's best damage team is physical damage with Xianyun. Yeah, I mean, I can't really say anything other than that. Mika is gonna be a pretty good one as well. She's gonna see pretty decent playtime with other physical units, right? Because he does boost physical damage, and at C6 he can actually be pretty good. But that can be said for the other buffers like Sarah, Goro, and Farazan. Especially if you want to play Mika with Eula, this is quite a good choice. Baiju's damage is just shit on his plunge attacks. They do a little more damage, but really, he has zero synergy with his kit. What I mean by that, his kit just doesn't increase his damage overall, so his plunge attacks aren't just that good at all. Kavi is good. He's going to be very comparable to Chongyun. He's going to be able to infuse himself with Dendro, plus he's a Claymore user, so he can do plunge attacks. Overall, he's going to profit from Cloud Retainer pretty well. Kirara, well, meh, physical. Linny is actually going to be the first character that is going to go into the top of the physical section, as he gains such a ridiculous buff against characters that are affected by Pyro that if you run a team Linny, Cloud Retainer, Xiangling, and Bennett probably, or replace Xiangling with Mika C6 if you have him, right, he will do quite a significant amount of damage. Lynette is gonna be good, however, only on C6. Yeah, fine, we'll put Dory up there, fine. I don't want to put Dory up there. I just can't, guys. Lynette C6 is just going to be infusion with animal damage, and it's going to be just the same as Dory. However, she gets 2 elemental skills, so up to a total of 10 seconds of animal infusion, which is pretty decent. It's at least better than 3. Fremine is decent. I'm actually gonna put him in here since he is a physical damage dealer, or Rhino sometimes, right? He's gonna work well. His kit just has 0 synergy. No be that. I guess I can put him up to here because he's Hydro. He can vaporize. Just play his normal teams, please. Don't do this, guys. And Ryozli is probably gonna be the same. Just play his normal attack teams. They're gonna be better. Farina. Well, you've probably seen the insane damage showcases that Farina can do at C6. Well, yeah, you can add plunges to that. So she's gonna gain a stupidly high increase as you can do plunge attack after plunge attack after plunge attack. And it's probably gonna be the team that deals the most amount of damage in the game. That is how strong it's gonna be. Farina is gonna be the strongest character in the game at C6 in 4.4, with no doubt. Charlotte, she's fine. She can infuse herself with cryo. Well, she's a catalyst, so that does work for plunge attack damage. And it actually does deal a little bit more damage. Navia is also a very good example of she works really, really well. She does have a Geo infusion, and she's a Claymore user. She has pretty good plunge attacks. The real issue is that her kit doesn't synergize well with this playstyle. Chevreuse is gonna go to the bottom. You may say, oh, hey, why don't you put her up with these, right? She's also a buffer. Well, no, because if you're using Xianyun, you have an Animo on your team, and, well, her passive doesn't work. Of course, well, herself, she's gonna do pretty much a lot more damage with her own buff. And then, of course, Gaming, who's going to gain quite a lot of damage from using Cloud Retainer. I do believe that this team is actually gonna be his best team, because he already does plunge attack damage. But, yeah, overall, I do believe that that's gonna be it for this tier list. I do believe that the meta is going to revolve around these characters, so if you have them, you can consider playing them with Xianyun if you do consider pulling for her. But yeah, that's all from me. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. See you, travelers.